Hello, everyone. I'm Janine Donnelly, Manager of Webinars for IBM Systems Magazine. And on behalf of IBM Systems Magazine, I'd like to welcome you to our presentation. We will be holding a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. You may ask a question at any time during the event by entering it into the Q&A panel. If you experience technical difficulties during the webinar, please use the Q&A panel to alert us, and someone will assist you. You may also download a PDF version of the slide deck by clicking on the drop-down menu labeled Event Resources, and you'll find that on the left side of your screen. Know that you can download the deck right from the platform without being disconnected from the webinar. Today's webinar, Results of the 2019 BMC Annual Mainframe Survey, is sponsored by BMC Software. Our featured speakers today are April Hickel and Alan Warhurst. April is the Area Vice President for Solutions Product Management. Her responsibilities include understanding software market dynamics, setting product strategic direction, and working directly with customers from acquisition to deployment for BMC's Z Solutions portfolio. She has over 20 years of diversified experience in enterprise software with a focus on IT operations management solutions. Alan has been in the IT industry for over 20 years and at BMC since 2014. He is currently a product manager in the ZSO organization, responsible for the storage management products as well as overall product strategy. He also has special responsibility for the Mainframe Advisory Council and Mainframe Survey. So today, April and Alan will reveal the results of BMC's 14th Annual Mainframe Survey, always one of our most popular events. So without further ado, April, I will turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you so much, Janine, and a very warm welcome to each of our attendees today. We're very excited to share with you the results of our 14th annual survey. We had over 1,100 respondents on this survey, and we're going to talk to you about what they said related to the Z platform. Today, Alan and I will really be covering 5 major topic areas. So we want to start off today talking a little bit about how the mainframe delivers for today's digital innovation. What's happening with the mainframe, how it's participating, what the sentiment is regarding the mainframe. We'll take you through some of the general findings, and we have those split in a number of different ways, so we'll be talking through some specifics. We'll talk about mainframe modernization and the impact that that is having in today's environment. Then we'll focus on what's next for the mainframe, the next wave of mainframe success and targets, and we'll end up this afternoon talking about the 3 keys to mainframe success. So that's what we'll be covering today as we go through the next hour. I'd like to start off today by talking about the optimism. So one of the things that we always do in our survey is we measure the sentiment, how people are looking forward to workload on the mainframe. And if you look at this data, what we found in the survey is that 93% of our respondents report growth on the mainframe. So new workload strength, long-term strength, and this is a high level since 2013. So again, very strong optimism, very strong positive outlook for workload on the mainframe. Now, if you look at how many respondents, what percent of respondents believe that this workload will be new workload, so not workload that's currently hosted in the mainframe, but new workload, that's 52%. And again, this is a significant increase year over year. Now, one of the ways that we look at our data, and I hope you all find this interesting, is we split it by people who have identified in an executive role and those who have identified in a technical role. So we call them execs versus techs. And it's always interesting to look at people who may be working with the platform day in and day out and what they consider the strengths or what they consider the outlook for the mainframe, and then the executives who are in leadership positions for the company. So looking at the optimism measures, we see that 59% of executives versus 49% of technicians in 2019 embrace the mainframe as a platform for growth. So very positive outlook over all respondents, strong belief in new workload growth from more than half, and very positive outlook from executive roles. Now, besides outlook, what do we see as MIPS growth? So what is the MIPS growth outlook for the mainframe? And you can see here at the top of the chart in the green, we show the outlook year over year. So you can see starting in 2006 on the left, going all the way to this year's survey at 2019, growing both new or legacy workload, 62% there by our respondents. So again, strong growth profile. And then if you're looking at who's declining or eliminating or who's flat, you can see those shaded sections in front of the green section. So green represents growing, both new and legacy. So strong growth, you can see trending up slightly as we go through the years. So back to our view of executives versus technicians. So let's say when we ask them, what are your mainframe priorities? And we give them the ability to pick from a list of multiple priorities, and they're allowed to pick their top 4. What really stood out to us as a mainframe priority? So 45% of executives said implementing cloud technologies is a mainframe priority for them, as opposed to 33% of technicians. Again, you can see in the bar charts, we've split our data, exec and tech, and you can say what is their view on how the mainframe platform will grow. So will it grow and attract new workloads? You can see a significant portion of our attendees, both on the executive side and the technician side, selected that option. Will it continue as a viable long-term platform, but perhaps not attract new workloads? That's the second slice down from the top. And then the less optimistic view are the very small number of respondents at the bottom. So again, executives viewing mainframe priorities and mainframe growth as a very positive in this survey. Another thing we asked about is, what are the obstacles that you're facing related to the mainframe? And if you look at the data between the executives and the technicians, there is a difference. So executive obstacles include security. We're worried about securing the platform. We know it has critical data on it. How do we make sure that it's secured? We're worried about platform capabilities. We're worried about the productivity of the development environment. So connecting our mainframe in, understanding the capabilities that the mainframe has. This is in contrast to the technician. So people hands on keyboard, responsible for the technical pillars of the platform. They're worried about staffing skill shortages. So how do we make sure we have enough people to do the work? And they're worried about management perception. Now, the good news about that, and for all of you attending today's webinar, is that the data shows an upswing, a positive sentiment in management. So that tide has definitely turned. Another executive strength is new technology available for the platform. So the obstacles are securing the platform, and the strength is new technology. The tech strengths are availability and security. So we see a difference in the executive obstacles and the executive strengths as compared to the technical obstacles and technical strengths. Again, those are persona-based. executives versus tech. So at 31% versus 22%, executives are significantly more likely than techs to see new technologies on the platform as a strength of the platform. So here to tell you more about the technologies and the opinions of our respondents in the survey is Alan Warhurst. Alan, over to you.
Thank you very much, April, and hello everyone. So those new technologies, we spent some time this year looking at those and understanding what they were, and it's clear that newer technologies are being adopted across the board, particularly in very large shops. So in previous years, we've always talked about a large shop being more than 10,000 MIPS. This year we've taken a slightly different view, so large shops are still over 10,000 MIPS, but we also wanted to have a look at the slice of shops that are more than 50,000 MIPS, so that's what we call an extra large shop now. And we see across all sizes of shop adoption of new technologies, new tools, new techniques, but we particularly see it in the very largest shops, those shops that are most committed to the mainframe. They're on the vanguard, the forefront of adoption of these new techniques. So things like Java usage is increasing at a significant rate. We've seen adoption rates increase over time, and those shops that have it now, particularly those large shops, are using more and more Java to replace their legacy applications or to write new applications. We see the adoption of ZOSMF, so IBM's new facility, new capability to help manage the mainframe and to help bring in the next generation of mainframe professional is getting increasing adoption across the board. Linux is still there, so half of large mainframe shops have Linux, have Z-Linux there, running and provide in a production environment, providing capabilities. And then the other one, and something we get very much from talking to a great number of our customers, we were talking at an executive council recently, and almost every single customer was using z/OS Connect. So the participation of the mainframe in the hybrid cloud environment, with all the hard work that IBM has done around that and the capabilities that they deliver to that, is truly being embraced, so it can take part in that API economy. But it's not just the technology that's being modernized, it's also the workforce. So we have I think 2 years ago, we started looking at the demographics of the people that we were actually surveying and looking at, okay, where's the next, one of the biggest concerns was, okay, where's the next generation of mainframe professional coming? And we can see that filtering through. Last year, we saw that the workforce had got younger, and they've got younger again this year. We're also seeing greater diversity. So this year, we were up to 30% of respondents were women. And we're seeing, these younger professionals come in, 15% of people between the ages of 18 and 29, and that's a 3-point increase on where we saw it in 2018, and that was a higher number again than it was in 2017. But also not just the age of the workforce, but also the experience. So the people that are now looking after mainframes, nearly a third of them, 29%, have less than 5 years experience on the platform. So as we were looking through these results and these figures, one of the areas that we particularly were interested in this year was, okay, how are these newer people to the platform, how is this younger generation view the platform, and how do they view it as we go forward? So fortunately, we had the option to pick two populations. So the baby boomers, the traditional mainframers, the people born between 1946 and 1966. That group of people there are the guys who grew up with mainframe, who've probably managed it since the beginning, and then also the millennials, so those people that have been born between 1980 and 2000. That group of younger people who've probably come to the platform more recently, and how do they view the platform as we go forward. And we saw some startling differences. The first one, again, as April's talked about a number of times, we test perception, we test the approach to the platform, and the newer generation have a more positive view than the guys who've done it for many years, which in some ways is a surprise, but is very, enthuses us. So we see a significant difference there. 60% of people think that will be a platform that will be there for growth. In both groups, very, very small numbers of people are saying, no, we don't think it's viable, which is really, really good. But if we delve into their approaches and their thoughts about the platform in even more detail, we can see that their priorities are also slightly different. So the baby boomers, the more traditional mainframe professional, focuses on the things that we have talked about for years. So cost optimization, security, application availability are key focuses for those guys. Now, the millennials still are focused on those things. They're still high importance, but there are other areas that they are very, very interested in, particularly around things like implementing DevOps practices, making it a more agile platform, implementing cloud technologies, driving forward with adoption of tools and techniques like AIOps to actually help manage that platform and go from there. And that led us to look at, okay, we've talked over the past couple of years about how people are modernizing their mainframe and how they're adopting new technologies. We can see that. We can see that they're modernizing their workforce. Where do they need to go next? What would be the next wave for mainframe success? And we thought what we'd do is we'd use the millennials view of the world, that next generation of mainframe professional, the guys who will be continuing to manage it hopefully for the next 40 years, where they would look at. And the first place that we honed in on was around DevOps. It's a key priority for the millennials, and knowing and talking to a number of executive customers, they absolutely see agility on the platform and the ability to flex for digital business being absolutely key to the continued success of the platform. So looking at DevOps, one of the things we wanted to look at initially was the business drivers. So those things that were causing challenge in terms of management and maintenance of the platform. So we've seen over the last couple of years the rate of application change certainly increase, but this year we also wanted to look and understand about database object change. So not just data access, but the structure and the nature of the data and whether people could cope with and manage that environment. And what we see is half of respondents see a significant increase in their rate of database object change. So that means the structure of their data is changing to accommodate new business processes, new applications, new capabilities. So we also wanted to look at, okay, so this is changing. How is that affecting sites? How are they coping with this? What tools, techniques, capabilities are they deploying? And what we found is a number of people are deploying tooling. That's probably the most popular answer. People are adopting their working practices, which is a good thing. But perhaps more worryingly, both from a mainframe platform point of view and also for the organizations that manage and run it, there is still a significant portion of people who are trying to limit their change activity, or who are having to increase their staffing, so increasing their cost, rather than having a capability to go away and embrace and drive forward. And we think that whilst that's okay for the short term, longer term, the cost disadvantages of doing that are going to be a major challenge. The other area we wanted to look at was, okay, well, if we've increased the agility, how do we manage this more dynamic environment? We see the rate of application change increasing. We see the rate of transactional things increasing. We see a lot of drivers to do that. How can we manage it? And we've all seen, I'm sure, lots of vendors talk about AIOps and how AIOps is going to be the new way of managing an environment. So we asked last year, and we've asked this year, how are you adopting AIOps? Are you using these new tools to manage your environment, to manage this new dynamic environment? And we were quite surprised, because I think we started asking last year, we've continued it this year, and what we've seen is a pause in adoption. So there are less people today who are using AIOps tools to help manage their mainframe environment. We see a slight dip in non-mainframe platforms, but certainly on the mainframe, we definitely see it. We see an increase in people who just don't use AIOps. So we asked, but you know, it's one of these ones where we still see the need. So as we look through the rest of the data, we can definitely see a greater challenge. So there's 70% of the net large shops, so that's shops greater than 10,000 MIPS, have seen an outage in the last 12 months. And of those, about 30% of those have had a significant effect on their production environment, which for a mainframe environment you would find quite incredible. 50% of people are seeing an increase in the volatility of their workload. So not only are the volumes, as April described at the beginning, increasing, we're now using more MIPS and those kind of things, it's happening in a far less predictable way. Availability is still absolutely key to the platform, so 49% of people picked availability as one of their top 4 priorities. So we know that it's still very, very important to customers. And as I said earlier on, 30% of people have less experience on this platform. So this is creating this kind of perfect storm of environments that mean that AIOps is absolutely required, or new answers are required to help manage this really quite or potentially complex environment. This more connected environment where we see more people using COS Connect and API connections, and we're doing it with less experienced staff. And as we asked customers, okay, from an AIOps point of view, why are you not doing this? The key answers we got back were, there isn't a solution that matches my needs. So whilst there is definitely a demand there, the supply and the capability for the vendors that are in the marketplace today probably aren't matching up. So if we talked about increasing agility, and we've talked about how you manage that environment, how you automate that environment, the other area that we thought it was very pertinent to look at was around security. So trust is probably one of the really key elements for any organization today, managing customers' data. We know that for mainframe shops, 50% of customers have more than half of their data sat on the mainframe today. And in many cases, given the nature of mainframe systems, that data is absolutely key to their enterprise and is probably highly sensitive from a customer point of view. So we wanted to look at, okay, from a security practice point of view, you've opened up your mainframe, you've made it more available. From a data point of view, API enabling it, making changes quicker. How are you managing your security environment? The first thing we wanted to look at was audit. So how are you checking your mainframe environment? How are you measuring against standards? Now, having worked in a mainframe and with mainframe environments for many, many years, audit and compliance are probably one of the highest watchwords. They're one of the things that most people dread, but also they're very, very used to that process. And indeed, 92% of our customers have had an audit within the last 2 years, which is good. So that means that they are regularly being checked, whether that's internally or externally, that they follow security standards. The more worrying statistic here is that 77%, so 3/4 of sites, have had a finding from those audits. Now, that's not 77% of the 92%, that's 77% of the whole population. And that's a very worrying statistic, because what that means is that 3/4 of mainframe sites have a failure in their security structure, whether that be actually something that can cause a breach, whether that be that they don't follow a standard or whatever that is. But that means that their mainframe is far more vulnerable than it should be. And it also means that for those teams that are managing that environment, they get unscheduled work that they need to go away and fix and rectify, rather than spending their time concentrating on doing other things for the business and helping the business satisfy the digital demand that's coming through. Now, so the other area is, okay, if you're doing all of these things, what tools and techniques and practices are you following? So you're regularly being audited, and we've got findings, but how are you monitoring and managing your system on a day-to-day basis? And these results for us were quite shocking. So we took things like NIST frameworks and those kind of things and picked on 4 key areas around security practice. The first being about external penetration testing. So validating your mainframe configuration, not just with an audit where they go and do a bench check, but saying, come and have a go at my mainframe and hack it for me. Only 1/3 of sites were actually doing that. And if we compare that to a distributed environment, I'm sure that those numbers would be infinitely higher. Perhaps even more worrying was privileged access management, which was a question we put on because we thought we'd get a very, very high number. We wanted to check because we consider that to be a basic piece for a reasonable security posture, and I was truly expecting numbers in the 80s or 90%. As it stands, less than half of people monitor their privileged access. And when you think that the privileged user has the keys to the kingdom, has the keys to all of the really key data, and their use of the system is not being regularly monitored, that's a grave concern. Because whilst you may trust those individuals that are on the platform and that are managing it, social engineering and hacking techniques and those kind of pieces mean there is a great opportunity for someone to go away and attack those credentials and understand and manage the system. And then the other area we wanted to look at was, okay, real-time monitoring. So the mainframe is participating in the wider enterprise community, particularly from things like an API perspective. We see an increase in volatility. Is it participating in a wider security community? Because we know that today, if you look at something like Gartner's Carter framework or that kind of thing, that a proper security approach is to detect and respond rather than assume that you can keep the bad guys out. They will get in, they will go after any platform that they can, and actually understanding the behavior of a bad actor within your estate requires you to instrument any platform that you possibly can. Now, only just over a third, 36% of people were actually sending data through into an enterprise SIM. So they weren't providing mainframe information into that wider community of security professionals who are truly monitoring the entire estate, which is a worry. And actually, from a dedicated mainframe point of view, only a quarter of people had a view just of their mainframe environment. So whilst that may be acceptable in some cases, understanding the security posture of your individual mainframe is also then a huge challenge. And this for us means that, you know, the message to the community is it's all very well modernizing all your tools and techniques and connecting in, but from a security perspective, it's absolutely key that certain capabilities are deployed across the mainframe and that the mainframe participates in that enterprise security view, not just anything else. So we'll continue to monitor these statistics as we go forward. We hope certainly that they will increase and improve over time. We'll only know. So that covers the main core of the results that we're going to discuss today. I shall now hand you back to April, who will talk about how we go forward.
Thank you, Alan. So I hope that everybody has been able to digest all of the detail in this survey, and we are thrilled to be able to share this with you year after year. When we look forward after this year's survey and we really think about making the mainframe successful in tomorrow's economy, three things stood out to us. So the first thing was it's imperative that you think about the need for increased agility and integration of the mainframe. So Alan shared with you the volatility of database change today, driven by new innovation being developed by the businesses. And as you think about that, slowing down innovation, slowing down the rate of change is not a viable long-term business strategy. So thinking about tool adoption, process change, buying into DevOps and how that can help you with agility is important as you think about the long-term success of the environment. Integrating data from the mainframe into your process and your applications. So that's the first thing. The second thing we think about and the data supports is that as the workforce becomes less experienced, more diverse, you're integrating, environments are more volatile, the rate of change is increasing. How are you going to possibly manage what was a fairly stable environment? We believe the path forward is to employ analytics techniques, machine learning, automation, and this is going to help you understand the environment as well as predict state changes in the future. So look at how you employ predictive capabilities, how you apply machine learning to the data and environment that you have, both to improve availability as well as to understand the changes. And the third thing, and as Alan shared with you, this was quite a surprising finding for us, was that the mainframe is being placed out of scope to many security strategies. And that could be for a number of reasons. But clearly, as you execute on agility and integration, integrating that mainframe into the security process procedure, making sure that you have penetration testing, making sure you understand your privileged user access and you're monitoring that, making sure you have the right information going to your security operations center, making sure security professionals can look at that to identify risk is critical. So as you think about the future, IT and the business need to align around these three pillars of future mainframe success: agility and integration, using analytics to make managing the mainframe easier and more affordable, and then managing ongoing security risk. At BMC, we believe the strategy to do this is embodied in our AIME strategy. So BMC has a strategy for automated mainframe intelligence, and this is our approach to making sure that all the important domains of the mainframe are looked after. So we have a 4-domain AIME strategy that we provide machine learning, analytics, embedded domain expertise to help you address specific problems. So Alan talked about the need to protect your data that's on that mainframe. You have data privacy and data access concerns. Using intelligent indicators of compromise, machine learning to understand if you have active threats. Data, increase your speed and agility. So with that rate of change and many more applications looking to access customer data, how do you know that you can handle the load, the performance? How are you providing access in an agile way to that data for applications that are being developed? So increasing speed and agility and access to data. Cost, this is really an optimization statement. So how do you understand the total cost of your operating environment and what opportunities you have to influence that cost? We believe, again, applying visibility, machine learning, and analytics will allow you to make better decisions related to cost. And then finally, systems. So we talked in the survey about AI ops, and you could see there was a little bit of disillusionment with the community about how do you apply AI ops to the data that we have in a relevant way. So BMC AIME is pleased to make available predictive notification of system failures or potential outages. So again, taking all of these things together in a holistic automated mainframe strategy allows you to focus on what's important. And this is all delivered in an easy-to-use, self-managing way. So as I wrap up here, I'm going to turn it back to Janine, and Janine is going to give you instructions about how you can ask questions. Janine?
Okay. Thank you, April. So if you have questions, please do enter them into the Q&A panel. And as we do that, I wanted to point out that we also can give you access to the actual survey. And I believe one of our questions, April, is it possible to get the actual questions? I believe this is a live link, and you could click on it and get that information, and you can do that right from the platform. If you want to open that into a separate window and check that out, please do. So with that, let's get to the first question. Can you expand a little on AI Ops? The question is, what is it?
So we discussed a lot when we were building the survey what we should, how we should call it, because there's lots of different terms used out in the industry. So whether it's AI Ops, intelligent automation, machine learning, all kinds of different terms. We actually gave all of the people who answered the survey a definition, and that definition is AI Ops refers to a multi-layered technology platforms that automate and enhance IT operations by using analytics and machine learning to analyze big data collected from various IT operations tools and devices in order to automatically spot and react to issues in real time. And where we use an industry term, unless it's very well understood, and there are not that many that are because they get used by all sorts of different people, we make sure as we build the survey that we give them a definition so that they can read and understand and then answer it as interpreted in that way.
Thanks, Alan. And then I do notice a couple of questions about getting access to the slide deck. So I'd like to reiterate, if you did join late, you may not realize that you can actually download a PDF version of the slide deck right from the platform today. So notice on the left-hand side of your screen a box called Event Resources. Click on that drop-down menu there, and from there you can download those slides. And again, without being disconnected from the webinar. Next question. Thanks for the presentation today. Is it acceptable for us to share slides with our leadership and application teams within our organization? April?
Yes, it is. Thank you for that question. We would love you to share this information. We believe that this is a powerful set of data that helps people understand what their peers are thinking, whether they're on the executive side or the technical side, as well as provide them information about the outlook and focus of their peer group. So we encourage you to share. You can find more information about the survey on the BMC website as well.
Great. Next question, did you solicit any feedback on automatic encryption?
So we ask a whole raft of different questions. We ask specifically about pervasive encryption. We started asking about it last year. We've asked about it again this year. And we see somewhere between 20 or 30% of respondents saying they have it deployed in some way, shape, or form. So we've seen, I think, a tiny uptick from last year, but nothing that's statistically significant. We were kind of surprised last year we had so many people respond positively to it, but from the conversations we've had from customers and those kind of things, there's an awful lot of people looking at that kind of technology. And next year we may explore a little more around other security techniques and that kind of thing.
Great. Do you have any details on the unscheduled mainframe outages?
Yeah, so again, we asked a follow-up question. We said, okay, what was the source of your unscheduled outage? And actually, there wasn't any one thing that particularly stood out. There was a mix of hardware failures, which was kind of surprising, and then a number of different types of software failures, whether they be system software or application software. I think the most popular one, or unpopular one, I should imagine, was application software, but it was either application software or system software or hardware failure were kind of the top three, but it wasn't like there was one thing that really stood out. It was kind of a fairly even distribution.
Okay. Next question, how is BMC working toward achieving ZDevOps?
I can take that, Alan. So one of the things that BMC has announced is AMI DevOps for DB2. And this is a solution that is really targeted at helping customers integrate the change process of their database into their DevOps pipeline. So you can imagine that one of the points of friction today is application developers who are making a lot of changes, want those changes done rapidly, are working on a tight innovation timeline, creating new ideas. They're looking to get data from the mainframe, and when they need changes made or when they have questions or need approvals, the process of those two groups, the traditional mainframe database management group and the DevOps innovation group, are slightly different. So we have automated the communication between those two groups. So directly from a DevOps pipeline, they can request the changes, and those can be easily and automatically approved by the mainframe data management group. So we believe opening up that channel of communication, making sure that both of those groups can work in the tools that best support their process and procedures and role, is a way to reduce that friction and include the mainframe in DevOps.
Thanks. The next question is, was this survey worldwide or just American and European markets?
So I'll take that one, Janine. So we asked the survey of the entire world. The bulk of the respondents are in either the Americas or EMEA, purely because that's probably where the bulk of mainframes actually are. But we do get respondents over in ASPAC. We certainly get respondents in South America and those kind of areas. And in some of those locations, we have made custom versions if we have enough respondents. So in some of the areas, it's very challenging because you can't statistically analyze like 10 people within a particular country. But where it makes sense, we've done slightly localized versions that are available through the local BMC rep.
Okay, and this next one, Alan, for the future-looking slides, do you have versions that address ZOS versus total mainframe?
So when we talk about ZOS versus total mainframe, we're talking very specifically about an IBM mainframe. So whether that's ZOS, CVM, Linux, and those kind of areas, we only ask about ZOS or Linux as the two operating systems. So we don't ask about things like VSE and those kind of pieces. Generally, what we've seen in terms of specialty engine growth that would support the Linux workload, that the growth is very much in line with the ZOS growth, in the same way that some of the specialty engines, the zip processors and those kind of things seem to grow in line with that. So there isn't a massive amount of difference. They stay fairly the same. The areas like TFP and that kind of stuff we don't particularly ask about because we don't have many customers in those spaces, and they're a smaller population, so they're more difficult to measure.
Thank you. Okay, many folks see perimeter security as the only solution they need on mainframes. Are they doing anything about insider threats?
So that is certainly the conversation we've been having with a lot of our customers over the past 12 months or so. The ongoing, as I was saying, about things like participating in the SIM and privileged access management, those are key capabilities to monitor and manage that insider threat piece, to allow you to understand whether that behavior is normal, to log it, to track it, to understand whether there is a pattern of behavior that not only applies to the mainframe but maybe applies to other platforms where a privileged account has either been hacked or somebody is taking a particular piece. And it's an area that we as BMC are passionate about, ensuring that the mainframe, whilst it is the most securable platform on the planet, we are not sure that as many people have it properly secure in a way that they would think. So we would urge people to go away and look at their current approach and take forward using industry standard approaches to monitoring, things like privileged access monitoring and overall system monitoring that will help with particularly problems like that.
Okay. Does the rise of IBM ZOS Connect and off-site IBM hosted mainframes impact the demand for software?
So I think from a ZOS Connect point of view, and whether that be IBM hosted mainframes or whether that be hosted by other third parties, from BMC point of view, we work in all of those environments. We monitor and help customers manage their ZOS Connect today. We strongly support anything that supports growth in the platform. We're highly committed to the platform and to any type of customer deployment that's there, because we think we can add value in all of those environments.
Next question. Are there a lot of companies, says, I think it's using self-services yet?
I don't know if I quite know what that question means. So what we have seen with customers, particularly when we talk about DevOps or we talk about environment provision, the adoption of things like ZOSMF is helping them manage those environments in a more self-service way. And certainly when it comes to things like application change and app dev people being able to promote changes in a way that you would consider to perhaps be self-service, then yeah, we're starting to see a growth and a rise in that from an agility point of view, so that we're helping customers take those pieces of those types of requests and do it in a way that helps them manage the risk, but also lets them deliver the agility.
Great, thank you. So as we're sort of winding down on questions here, so I want to remind you once again, there's a live link on that Q&A. Click in the box there on that Q&A slide for access to the survey and more information I know you're going to be interested in. Next question. For AI ops, going back to that, you say that customers are struggling to find solutions that address their needs. What area do you think people should focus on?
So from a business point of view, we would suggest that the best place to go forward is with areas that are high priority. So availability is one of those areas, and problem diagnosis are some of the areas that we absolutely see value in a customer base today. As we said, we're still seeing a significant amount of outage on a platform that's probably considered to be the most available. So anything that can help you see around the corner and help you predict those things before they become service affecting is absolutely key. Also, in talking through with customers in complex environments, the ability to go away and diagnose a problem either ahead of time or potentially, even if it has hit in some way, shape or form, to then diagnose, to get to an easy route, a quick and simple root cause type of approach we see. And we also see it in things like capacity planning and those kind of areas where we're seeing customers struggle with the volume of data and truly understanding what is normal. So in these highly dynamic environments, knowing whether something is good or bad is ever more challenging, and the use of analytics and AI ops capabilities seem to offer potential solutions in those areas if the vendors are doing it in the right way.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no more questions, I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar and particularly for your participation. Great questions today. I also want to thank April and Alan for sharing their expertise with us today. Watch for a follow-up email that will come out later this week. It will contain a link to the recording of today's webinar. That concludes our webinar. Thanks again and have a great day.